In 1914, a country was created without a single vote, without consent, and without its people ever being asked. This is the story of how Britain merged hundreds of nations, kingdoms, and cultures into one entity and called it Nigeria.
Before Nigeria, there was no single country. There were powerful kingdoms and empires, the Sokoto Caliphate in the north, the Oyo Empire and Benin Kingdom in the west, the Igbo city-states and trading networks in the east, and coastal kingdoms like Bonny, Calabar, and Itsekiri in the south. These societies traded, governed, fought, and prospered independently for centuries.
Britain didn't arrive as a government. It arrived as a trader. By the early 1800s, British merchants dominated palm oil, ivory, and later rubber exports from the Niger Delta. Trade slowly turned into control, and control turned into conquest.
In the south, Britain ruled directly. Traditional rulers were weakened or removed. British courts replaced local justice systems. Western education and Christianity spread rapidly. By 1900, the British formally declared the Protectorate of Southern Nigeria, governed from Lagos.
The north was different. After defeating the Sokoto Caliphate between 1903 and 1906, Britain ruled through indirect rule. Emirs kept their positions but answered to British officers. Islamic law remained for local matters, while Britain controlled taxation, trade, and military power. This became the Protectorate of Northern Nigeria. In the east, where centralized kingship was limited, Britain imposed warrant chiefs, leaders often chosen by colonial officers, not the people. This system ignored Igbo political traditions and would later spark resistance, including the famous Women's War of 1929. By 1910, Britain faced a problem. The north was vast but poor. The south was smaller but wealthy thanks to trade and ports. Running them separately was expensive, so Britain made a decision, not for Africans, but for British efficiency. On January 1st, 1914, British colonial governor Lord Frederick Lugard merged the Northern and Southern Protectorates. No African leaders were consulted. No borders were negotiated. It was an administrative merger, a forced political marriage. The name Nigeria wasn't indigenous. It was coined in 1897 by Flora Shaw, a British journalist who later married Lord Lugard. Nigeria simply meant the land around the River Niger, a geographical label turned into a nation.
Ethnic groups were split. Rival communities were merged. The lines were drawn for colonial convenience, not cultural unity. The consequences would echo through politics, identity, and conflict long after Britain left.
When Nigeria gained independence in 1960, it inherited borders and systems it never designed. 6 years later came military coups, then civil war. The legacy of 1914 was still present. Nigeria was not created by its people. It was created for efficiency, for control, for empire. Yet, more than a century later, over 200 million people still carry the weight and the possibility of that decision. So here's the real question history leaves us with. Can a nation formed by force become one held together by choice? Or are we still living inside a map drawn in 1914?